Hello, and thank you to all present here at our center, along with those watching virtually, for setting aside time to honor and pay tribute to our center's former president, our colleague, and our dear friend, Lieutenant General Hank C. Stackpole III. He was admired and respected by so many, and if not for COVID, this auditorium would be packed. The foyer outside will be filled with all those people whose lives were touched in very special ways by this humble and gracious leader. One of the presentations we have today reflects the genuine sentiments by many who had the privilege to meet or work with him while he was president of our center. But before I get ahead of myself too much, I want to extend a warm aloha and e komo mai welcome to some very special guests that are here with us today. First, General Stackpole's ohana, his lovely wife Vivian, his son Colin, and two of his daughters, Dana and Karen's boyfriend Mark. Thank you for being here. We are also very fortunate to be joined today by some of Hank's very close friends and associates. Lieutenant General Fig Leaf, former director of our center and a good friend. Ambassador Charlie Salmon, also a former APCSS faculty and also a very good friend of ours. Dr. Jimmy and Lulu Lackey, who through his vision, leadership, has stood up this center and was General Stackpole's right-hand man at the onset of our institution. It's good to see you, Jimmy and Lulu. Thank you for being here. And last but not least, Jerry Sumida, the president of the APCSS Foundation. The foundation has been steadfast in their support of our center's initiatives throughout the years. So to all of you, it's a small select group. Thank you so much, mahalo nui loa, for being here. As we all know, General Stackpole served as the first president of the Asia-Pacific Center for Security Studies for 7 years, from February 1998 to April of 2005. Those years set the foundation, that legacy I'm referring to, and the direction of the center that would shape and define its success for decades to come. During Hank's leadership, the center developed an outstanding academic institution, providing a forum where current and future military civilian leaders come together throughout the Pacific and would gather here to enhance security cooperation. The strength of his character and depth of his aloha for the mission and the broader humanity made him the ideal leader to chart the course for DKI APCSS. Under his tenure, Hank presided over 24 executive courses, graduating over 1,400 fellows from 44 countries, directed and implemented 10 senior executive courses, and ensured the DKI APCSS research and publication program attained an international reputation for excellence, and launched the first 2 comprehensive security responses to terrorism courses. In addition, he shaped the center's international conference program, which sponsored 89 events with 5,700 participants from 65 countries. His goal with the conference program was to provide the region an opportunity to understand U.S. policy and seek solutions to common security issues, while providing valuable insight to our U.S. stakeholders on regional policy issues. As a polished diplomat, the visitor program took root under Hank, and he shared this regional center's mission with 2,900 visitors, to include a president of a country, secretaries of defense, chairmen of joint chiefs of staffs, 43 ambassadors, and over 270 plus general officers. Hank's stewardship was a major influence in the move to a new facility in June of 2000. Our beautiful center campus at Fort DeRussy, as it stands today, is in large part due to his vision. Of note, force protection was one of his primary concerns in the post-9/11 environment, And with his guidance and the unique rock wall barrier was built around the center, disguised as a landscaping feature using large boulders, moss rock walls, and coconut palms. Perhaps his greatest legacy to DKI APCSS was Hank's passionate and unwavering emphasis on building and maintaining relationships. Today, this is the heart of DKI APCSS, and we owe this great leader a debt of gratitude for all that he has done to set that foundation. After completing his role of APCSS president, Hank continued to support the center in a new capacity as director on the board of foundation for the Asia-Pacific Center for Security Studies. The foundation supports the center by hosting numerous events to enhance collaboration between international fellows. The foundation was twice honored by the Consular Corps of Hawaii for their outstanding service, most recently in February of 2020. This is the incredible legacy left to DKI APCSS by Hank, and we will be forever grateful to him. My wife, Anne-Marie, and I only met Hank and Vivian a few years ago, shortly after taking over as the director of DKI APCSS. At that time, it was a little difficult for Hank to verbally communicate, and I knew looking into his eyes how much he wanted to share his perspective of the region and the center with me, but that was okay. For I learned a lot about Hank through the folks around him, or should I say, surround him. Whenever he came to the center for an event, such as the APCSS annual meetings, many of our current staff and faculty would seek him out and leave with many smiles. In many community functions where we shared a table with Jerry Sumida, Barbara, and friends, both Vivian and Hank were always there to support. And yes, I witnessed, just like at the center, a pattern. Many came up to say hi and share a laugh with them. There was certainly a pattern, and folks were happy and very comfortable being around Hank and Vivian. That is what I remember about both of you. I remember you two as a couple, not as an individual. The last event we were together was at the Consular Corps Recognition Night, where both the foundation and the center were recognized for building international cooperation and collaboration. I walked up to the stage with Hank and Jerry, and it was a humbling feeling to stand next to both. But the most lasting memory I would take with me of Hank and Vivian was during those early Sunday masses at Holy Trinity. They were always quietly sitting in the front, and I remember they always made time to chat with Anne-Marie, Peter, and I before or after Mass. A humble setting for a humble couple who touched the lives of many in simple and genuine ways. In all these times I recall being with Hank, Vivian was always there. Both Anne-Marie and I were always moved by how much she did to care for Hank. I know it was tough at times, Vivian, but you inspired us by your perseverance and love of Hank. I know we are honoring him today, but I also know you were a huge part of his success and his life all the way to the end. Mahalo nui loa. Thank you for always being there for him. Please give Vivian a round of applause. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Jimmy Lackey. Dr. Lackey was the project officer to establish the center more than 25 years ago. He served as the center's first executive director and as Hank Stackpole's right-hand man for many years. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jimmy Lackey.
I'll do my Santa Claus impersonation here. Yeah, I want to thank Pete and the Center for including me in the activities today. Very important to me, obviously. If there was ever a great example of the right person with the right skills showing up at the right place at the right time, it happened in February 1998 when Hank Stackpole stepped off the elevator on the 19th floor of the Waikiki Trade Center as the new director of the Asia-Pacific Center for Security Studies. I want to back up just a little bit and talk about how we got to that point in the previous 3 years. I was assigned to Pacific Command, and on the 4th of December 1994, I briefed the SINC, Admiral Dick Mackey, on the concept for establishing a regional studies center under the control of U.S. Pacific Command, very similar to the George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies that had been activated a year before that. Admiral Mackey approved my recommendation and put me in charge, as Pete identified. I was a project officer. In January 1995, with a very small group of people, located in the old PACOM Mar-4PAC headquarters building, the Termite Palace, as we often refer to it, we started the project. We didn't have a Department of Defense directive that officially authorized us, which meant every resource that we had came out of Pacific Command's hide. And Admiral Mackey, true to his word, was all in on supporting us. So the people that we, starting with me, that came out of the hide up there, we had authorized positions. I had a full-time job. They disappeared and they couldn't backfill them with anyone. We pulled, I think, 6 people just out of the J5 area where I was one of the division chiefs. All the resources and the commitment, and General David Bramlett was a deputy commander at that point in time, and he headed the joint working group to look at how do they support us on the thing. So lots of credit there. The interesting thing is, as we developed the concept, we talked around and worked with organizations. Everyone that we talked to doubted that we would exist 6 months after that, because 1995 happened to be the first year where all of the Department of Defense was going down. It was reducing its size, its strength, because the budget had been cut dramatically. The same thing happened. I went out into the region, was beating the drum and seeing if there was interest in the region from the primary countries that we interact with, to see if they're willing to commit and send people to the programs that we were proposing at that point in time. After every briefing, someone would say, do you really think you're going to exist after the first round of cuts? I mean, every country in the region watches the U.S. defense budget. And so they were quoting me on what the odds were. Good news is in 29th of January 1996, we're a year ahead of now, the DoD Directive 5200.32 officially established the Asia-Pacific Center for Security Studies. It was signed and released. And so we literally popped a cork on one bottle of champagne amongst 25 people at the Waikiki Trade Center, and that was our celebration. 2 days later, on January 31st, 1996, Admiral Joe Prier took command of Pacific Command. And within a week, I was up briefing him on the Asia-Pacific Center, where we were headed, and the thing I pushed most was we got to have a director. Now that we have the DoD directive, we can start hiring people for the position. So obviously he energized the system, he took the lead on that. Unfortunately, it took a lot longer than we expected to do the advertisement, go through the screening, and get the people in here. One of the challenges was who we needed. I had been to the Marshall Center twice at that point in time, and they had some problems dealing within European Command because they didn't understand the rules. And part of the problem was My personal opinion, they had the wrong guy as the director. The number two was a retired three-star Army General Corps commander who knew it upside down and backwards, but he didn't have the authority to make decisions. My proposal was, and at least two people in this room met the requirement, needed to be a proven leader. Asia-Pacific Center is a very unique organization. It's a joint organization. We have Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, we've had Coast Guard, you name it. We've had all the services in here represented. We have professional civilians. We had a joint faculty. And oh, by the way, we definitely have a joint student body that comes into the program here. So it should be treated like a joint organization, and you need some with that level of experience to lead it. Obviously, you need experience in the Asia-Pacific region, have an understanding of military, political, and diplomatic policies and how they interact with countries in the region. And the one I added at the last minute for Admiral Peer was we really need somebody who understands U.S. Department of Defense management system and how we fit inside that thing. It saves you a lot of grief over the long haul. Now, in 1997, the screening committee that was working under the guidance of U.S. Pacific Command, Admiral Preer, evaluated the resumes of 36 applicants for the director position. The unanimous recommendation from that committee was for Hank Stackpole. Admiral Preer concurred and notified the Secretary of Defense of his selection, and the Secretary of Defense approved Hank to be the new director. Now, I have to admit, I was a little biased as we went through the selection process. The job announcement that went out listed me as a point of contact for any additional information or questions. Of the 36 applicants considered for the director's position, one person contacted me, Hank Stackpole, and multiple times. Genuine interest in what we were doing, how we were doing it, why we were doing it, and it continued to evolve. So there was a working relationship there. Now back up a little bit before he was selected, but in December, I guess you guys were here on island, December 1996, excuse me. Hank called and says, would it be possible to come by the center? I said, sure. Comes by, we're in the Waikiki Trade Center, gave him a briefing of the center, walked him through the facilities we had. At the time, I think we had 3 floors, expanding to 5. So we own most of the Waikiki Trade Center. A week later, Christmas Eve, we go play around the golf at Kaneohe. It was kind of funny. It was more like a terrain walk with lots of conversation about the Asia-Pacific Center. He was excited about it, lots of questions, all the right questions. I mean, there was not a bad question that ever got translated back and forth between us on this thing. But at one point, one of the lighter moments, I made a statement. I said, I told him I thought the Marine Corps had made a big mistake. That got his attention. I said, they should have put you, his face, on a recruiting poster for the Marines. And if they really wanted to get it right, they would have made a short video with him doing a recruiting pitch for the Marine Corps. He was it. I mean, he's the ultimate, if you have an image of a Marine Corps leader, that was Hank Stackpole. Square jaw, good-looking guy, extremely articulate. I mean, the list goes on and on. I said, I was an Army colonel. I would have transferred over to the Marine Corps, if you're done with us. That became kind of an inside joke, with us here at the center. After his selection in 1997, we knew it was going to take several months because they had to unplug from the job they had in Tokyo and then make the move to Hawaii and then get settled. We had continuous conversation. Anytime he had a break, then he would call and he'd have another 4 or 5 questions he had to ask. I was always impressed because it wasn't just, what are you doing? It's, why are you doing it? And how are you doing it? I mean, he wanted to understand all the moving parts. He drilled me on what I just described to you as a start point at Pacific Command Headquarters because he needed to understand the personalities and how people reacted to it because he's going to be dealing with the follow-on from that. That impressed me. One of our earlier conversations after he, again, was selected, He said, "What should I be focusing on?" I told him, we were not going to make the same mistake the Marine Corps did. He was going to be the recruiting poster for the Asia-Pacific Center for Security Studies, both the face and the voice, so be prepared. And he laughed and said, "I got it. We can do that." Back in 1998, when he officially reports in as the director/president, we called it president at the time because there was confusion in the region. I'll explain that one little piece, and then it changed later on, because a director meant something different than a president. A university or educational facility, they had presidents, and so I got approval, and it changed with him coming in. He was the president of the Asia-Pacific Center for Security Studies. He was prepared on day one to be the leader of the Asia-Pacific Center. All the questions we'd asked. I mean, he dug in. He wanted to understand, and understand, I can underline. It wasn't just knowing, it was understanding the process. That was him. That never changed. But he also knew that we were still building. We were about 65% strength then. And over the past 3 years, we had conducted about 15 conferences. We had conducted 3 of the college courses, 1 in 96, 2 in 97, and we were using borrowed professors. You know, Ambassador Salmon was, we hired him one job and gave him 3 hats. He became a good advisor. He was a stopgap for us when we tried to get foreign professors in and the special visas that required. Charlie was a point man. Charlie taught classes. Charlie sat in seminar. So that was kind of the rules back then. Everyone came in, we gave you 2 or 3 more hats. The interesting thing, everyone understood Hank's qualifications. No question. He was #1 in the selection. You look at his marine biography, there was no question. He was a guy that was more than qualified. Everything that I read you off a little bit earlier, he had it in spades. He had spent so many years in the Pacific region. He dealt at the political, military, the diplomatic level. All of those things, that was a fact. The #1 concern of the staff at that point in time was, okay, what's he like as an individual? Yeah, we know he's qualified. Who's Hank Stackpole, the individual? We found out that #1 is very easy to figure it out because he is very open. He is very consistent. So if he does something on Monday, I guarantee you 6 years from now, on Tuesday, he'll be doing the same thing because it's the right thing. And that's important to the staff because you got to count on that. He was a patriot in every sense of the word. I'm serious, in every sense of the word. And he was proud of it, not afraid to talk about it. He loved his country, very proud of it, glad to talk about it. Even in an international audience, he found a creative way of bringing it in and talk about the values that he believed in. He believed in God and his church, and he practiced the basic common sense rules for living and treating people well, based on that background. In fact, one of the things I'd taken out, he was obviously in the Boy Scouts, he was an Eagle Scout, and so the little thing of a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. I was there too. Hank lived that. That was a template that he put down, and everything else kind of went inside that. Vivian may object to the obedience type, but everything else fit. He loved the Marine Corps like no other. I guarantee you. It's, if you wanted a champion, hand him a lance, and he's charging off into the sunset for that. Loved his family. Good to see you all again. Trust me, I wish it were under different circumstances. Vivian, who put up with him playing Marine all over the world, he appreciated her so much, and he talked about it. One of the things that we had that we liked is a couple times a week when the dust settles, you kind of sit back in the office, the staff is gone, you sort out a couple of little things that need to be sorted, then you start talking about things. Family always came up with Hank. The 3 kids, was so very proud of it because, 1, you became very independent, and 2, because you were growing up and just become good, decent people. He did impose one rule with me, though. I was not allowed to talk about my 3 grandchildren after the first time. And fortunately, at least until you kids, finally got with a program, made him a grandfather, it couldn't come up again. So it was always kind of a running thing, and I would get almost at the point of mentioning it and then back off. But loved it. He believed in the concept of Ohana, and Pete mentioned that a little bit earlier. Everyone he talked to in this center just loved being around him. There were no rules. If he was outside of his office, you could ambush him all you want. Trip to the water fountain, trip to the restroom. He would meet 10 people going and 10 people coming back. We actually had some simple rules there that if he had a meeting, we'd launch the secretary out, and if he wasn't in his office, we'd launch the secretary out and to get close to him and just let him know, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, and he would go. If it was an important briefing and he was out somewhere in the center, he could be talking to a professor, could be talking to Mike Hogan and his little cubbyhole, back in Lenore's staff, find him, number one, and then 2, give him the 10-minute and the 5-minute warning, and then get him down there for an important meeting, because everyone was important to him. But the Ohana concept was good because with simple gatherings honoring birthdays and other recognitions, you bring a very diverse group of people together. It's not like a corporation where everyone is kind of focused in the same general direction. We got lots of directions that are going, Pete has lots of directions going on simultaneously here, and it's very difficult to get those people together unless you have some excuse to do that. And of course, one of the best things that happened to us is when we finally moved in 2000 from the Waikiki Trade Center to Fort DeRussy to this facility, it created a taste of Asia-Pacific that Mr. Patakula is dealing with under normal circumstances. Great communicator, tremendous public speaker. We're all convinced he could probably sell snow cones to Eskimos in the middle of the winter. He was that good. If he made his mind up, he wanted to convince you of something, trust me, the odds are I would always bet on him. I don't remember a single meeting where he lost when he was right, and he wanted to make sure that it happened. All of those qualities, and trust me, there's another 100 qualities that we recognize as individuals because we dealt with him every day. They were all genuine. And I think those things were just naturally embedded in his DNA. And like I said, he was consistent. For all the years that I knew him, his thinking never changed, and it wasn't because he was outdated, it's because that was the right thing to do. When all else fails, those were the basic things that how you deal with life and people. And he honestly believed that. He was a role model and a mentor to everyone who worked with him. If you didn't learn, you were not listening, because he was always teaching. I asked a Marine colonel who worked for me one time, who had worked for General Stackpole in the past, what he thought about him. He smiled and said, well, when it comes to mission training, he's as hard as nails, but he loves his Marines and he sure knows how to take care of them. I guess Hank softened up a little bit on the hard as nail approach to developing the Asia-Pacific Center, but he sure knew how to take care of his people. I had the additional honor of spending a lot of time with him and being able to call him a very close personal friend. And I'll cherish that forever. Thank you very much.
Jimmy, thank you so much for those heartfelt reflections on Hank and the journey that you both had here in starting up the center. It really means a lot. Now I'd like to ask Tom Patakula, followed by Lenore Patton, to come forward. Both Tom and Lenore were here throughout Hank's leadership of APCSS, and they shared with me how honored they were to have worked under Hank during those startup years of APCSS. Hank, Lenore.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. And also, I'm honored to be able to present this Lifetime Achievement Award to your husband and to your dad. He's a super guy. Some short memories from me. I'm going to echo a lot what Dr. Lackey said. Your dad was a great speaker. When we used to have the presentations in here, especially when he talked about Operation Sea Angel, about the terrible typhoon that hit Bangladesh, he'd have the class mesmerized. You could hear a pin drop in the auditorium. And you know, I always remembered his presentations were awesome. He's also a great listener. You know, a lot of people, when they're talking to you, they don't look at you. Your dad would look right at you and absorb everything that you were saying, and he would not interrupt you. He'd wait for you to finish, and then he would talk. I thought that was awesome. He's also a great communicator with the fellows. He could talk to anybody. He would have a group of the Southeast Asia fellows come in, the South Asia fellows, North Asia, all the regions. He would have them come in his office, eat lunch, and talk to them. He made that a point to do that for every class. A couple other things. He also liked to have a lot of fun. I can remember going out to Bellows, and he loved that Bellows Beach party where we'd bond together with the fellows, and he'd have a tug-of-war competition, and he'd sit around and talk to all the fellows. The fellows adored him. They loved him, all right? And Taste of Asia-Pacific. I know Mrs. Stackpole remembers him taking the microphone and singing his version of Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and you would be rolling your eyes at him, okay? So that was good. And the other thing that we got him to do, and Dr. Lackey remembers this too, we got him to go out outrigger canoe paddling with us, and he loved that. He just liked being out there with all of us. And, you know, once again, super guy. I know he's in heaven, and he's looking down right now. And so with that, I'd like to present, on behalf of the Center, the 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award to Lieutenant General H.C. Hank Stackpole III for significant and sustained contributions to build capacity, engender security cooperation, and advance peace, stability, and prosperity throughout the Indo-Pacific region and the world. Signed, Peter Gumatautau, Director, Daniel K. Inouye Asia-Pacific Center for Security Studies. Aloha.
Good evening and aloha. When General Stackpole arrived to head up APCSS in 1998, I had been with the center for just over 3 years as part of the inauguration team. As Dr. Lackey had described, by 1998, we anxiously awaited the start of the boss. In Lieutenant General Stackpole, our small startup team found our compass. We found our statesman. We found our wise counsel, we found our champion, and we found our visionary leader. I'm so incredibly honored to have been mentored by General Stackpole for the 7 years that he served as president. And so today, I'm honored once again to present General Stackpole's family this book compiled by his grateful ohana at DKI APCSS. As you know, ohana in Hawaiian means family, and it's because of the tone General Stackpole set when leading our center's early years that we can today truly call our huge global network an ohana, a family. When news of the General's passing reached our staff, current and former, and our colleagues and alumni throughout all our communities here in the US and in the region, we received an outpouring of over 300 messages from here at home and from over 60 nations. Messages of condolence, sympathy, great memories, and wonderful stories. These have all been captured in this book. Here on the screen, you'll see a sample of just a few of the pages. Also included in the book are dozens of photographs of General Stackpole, encompassing his graceful leadership of APCSS. Yes, in the book, you'll certainly see photos of him speaking to dignitaries and inaugurating the new Waikiki facilities. But you're also going to see photos of him, just as Tom described, pulling at the tug-of-rope game at Bellows Beach with our fellows and paddling a canoe with our APCSS canoe team. We hope you'll enjoy this book as a keepsake that truly captures what General Stackpole meant to us and just how much we really miss him. So now, Miss Vivian, if you want to go ahead and join me up here, we're going to take a photo with you, me, and Tom in our presentations. And then afterwards, ma'am, we wanted to give you the opportunity, if you wanted to just say a couple of words. So we'll do a photo first.
I just want to thank all of you to have done this for Hank. I'm sure he's very honored and very happy about it, but I'm sure he's saying too much fuss. So, but I call this, Hank, I think, enjoyed this as much as he did in the Marine Corps, the love for the Marine Corps. But you are a little close behind. Marine Corps comes first. And, and I call this his abyss, because he was never home. And I was promised by Admiral Prier he won't travel. And I called Prier. I said, you lied to me. So, but anyhow, thank you all so very much. Thank you. This is wonderful.
just want to take this opportunity to recognize and thank our awesome public affairs team that led by Mary Markovinovich for putting together that exceptional collage of memories. Is truly celebrating this tribute to Hank and all those that knew him. Couldn't include and find everybody else, but this just a tip of the iceberg. There's so many people he's touched, both for you and Hank, Vivian. We're so grateful. So now it's time to transition to the auditorium foyer for the actual dedication portion of today's tribute. So if we can ask to maintain orderly social distancing, I kindly ask for the back row, Fig, Lulu, Jimmy, Ambassador Sam, and Jerry, if you guys can just head towards where Lenore's at, and then right after that, Vivian and her family will follow. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll now begin this program out here in the foyer.
E ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai ka iki mai luna e, o nā mele huna noi au, o nā mele, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai ka iki mai luna e, o nā mele huna hunau, o nā mele, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai e.
Please join me in prayer. Loving God, we ask for your blessings to all who are here at our center, as well as guests and family members that join us to build understanding and respect of one another. We ask that DKI APCSS continues to be a safe haven for peace and a humble reflection of the security that comes from you. May our doors continue to be a welcome sight for those who believe there is much good that can be done working together while celebrating the diversity of many views. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the time you have given us with Lieutenant General Hank Stackpole. His grace, courage, and compassion have forged the backbone of the culture of Ohana we share at the center today. We ask that you bless his wife, Vivian, his children, and all others that have gathered and are virtually with us to witness the dedication of this auditorium in his memory. May all who enter the doors of the Hank C. Stackpole Auditorium be filled with peace, joy, and humility, so that they may be open to learning and working together with others for the greater good. In your most holy name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sherry Lynn, for that prayer, and thank you, Tessie, for the holy chant. From the day Hank and Jimmy opened its doors, this auditorium served proudly as a haven for cooperation, a place where security practitioners shared and learned from each other, where relationships were formed and later used as bridges, collaborating and cooperating. Yes, many of our alumni who have come through these doors were fortunate to have met General Stackpole. It is our hope that future Indo-Pacific security practitioners who come to our center will benefit from the culture of respect, inclusiveness, and transparency that Hank had established while he was here. The plaque you see here in front of us reads as follows. Lieutenant General Henry Charles Stackpole III, United States Marine Corps retired, President, Asia-Pacific Center for Security Studies, February 1998 to April 2005. His visionary leadership set the foundation to educate, connect, and empower generations of security practitioners. Vivian, if you would kindly step forward to the Miley Lay, Sherry Lynn will assist you. Ladies and gentlemen, I hereby officially dedicate this, the H.C. Hank Stackpole III Auditorium. Yay! Okay, so can we bring your family up and get a picture of you guys standing there with this? Thank you. Hey, can we do one more? Mark, can you go up there? Just go up there just one shot. Come, bro. You're part of the Ohana. Okay, there you go. Okay, so you can stay right there. Well, congratulations again. Well done. Yay. So here's my closing part, right? So ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude, I wanted to take a moment to thank all those in our center who worked diligently, patiently, with much aloha, to plan and execute today's tribute to General Stackpole. Like all events we conduct here, it has been a team effort. Too many for me to try to name. Otherwise, I know I'm going to end up missing somebody. But I do want to give a shout out. Okay, I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to try. I'm going to shout out the real team led by Lenore. Of course, Sherry Lynn was here. Awesome. The PA team, see Bob Goen running around and taking the pictures. But Mary Markovinovich, I know, helped in correcting my grammar and my script. The VI team, the visual folks, and I tell you what, they do magic behind the glass booth. And they just make things look so professionally. John's behind the screen looking at me, goes, hurry up there, director. The admissions team led by our legendary Tom Patakula. I mean, Tom, having you and Lenore present to Vivian and the family the tribute of the book and the award was so fitting, since you guys are a big part of this center. Thank you. The facilities teams, you know, the ones that do the markings and all of the stuff and all of the signs saying be safe, COVID environment, and just so many others. I know I missed them, but I tell you what, they were so happy to do this. And I know you're saying, hey, there's a lot of work. They did it with much aloha and love. And that's because of what you both meant to us, you and Hank and the family. And so I sense wherever General Stackpole is at, wherever he's at, could be standing right next to me. Kind of spooky, right? But if he's standing right next to me, I know he's smiling. And he's smiling and he's grateful for all the efforts that our Ohana has done. So I know a lot of you are up on virtual. You're all part of this. You're part of the legacy that General Stackpole has set and is followed by many of the folks that represent him through the years. Be proud of that. And I'm very proud of you for what you've done for our colleague and our shipmate. Sorry, I did say shipmate, didn't I? Sorry, all habits die hard. I also want to thank Vivian and her family, her close colleagues, my friends, and friends along with the APCSS Ohana who joined us virtually, all who have come here to honor and give tribute to a dear friend, an APCSS leader. We here at the center will ensure that his legacy will live on. Malama kekahi ikekahi, which is take care of each other, and aloha. Thank you all very much.